Thank you very much for inviting me. Oh, I have a severe echo here in my line. So there's a mic on, I think. So I will try it nevertheless. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I am really sorry that I was not able to meet you personally there in Moscow. So, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, just to introduce myself, I assume it was not yet done. I'm with Bayer Healthcare Pharmaceuticals, and I am the head of counterfeit protection management. Have been working in the past, for example, in the WHO Impact Technology subgroup, in the FPR anti-counterfeiting working group. I'm currently working in the norming process for the temper verification features according to the EU Falsified Medicine Directive. And I'm active in this area for nearly 10 years now. I'm happy to present you the FPR European stakeholder model here. So next slide, please. Just to let you know what FPR is about. So FPR, as you might not be familiar with it, FPR is the Association of the Research-Based Pharmaceutical Industry in Europe. And it brings together more than 30 national pharmaceutical associations and more than 30 of the leading pharmaceutical companies in one association. Next slide, please. So to let you know what I'm going to talk about, and I hope I can provide you a very interesting and valuable presentation today. It's short background for the Falsified Medicine Directive. I'm sure you have heard a lot about it, so I will keep it very short. Then about the governance and operational structure of the proposed system, then the design. I have included the second presentation about the SecoPharm pilot into one, so we will save a little bit of time. As I understood, you are a little bit behind schedules, and you will see an outlook what are the next steps in our proposal. So next slide, please. So the basis for everything what we are doing is a Falsified Medicine Directive. And next slide, please. The reason why this directive was introduced is the increasing risk for falsified medicine, even in very well regulated and controlled markets like the European one. It's definitely growing, and the risk is increasing. And so the European Commission felt it's necessary to introduce something against it, and that it's really a real danger and risk is proven by the cases we recently had. Spring this year, we had a very huge counterfeit case in Germany affecting generic omeprazole. And in France, we had a big seizure of a counterfeit acetylic acid product in France, in an harbor. So there is a big pressure of counterfeit medicine trying to reach patients in Europe. And I'm always very reluctant with figures. The WHO believes it could be up to 1% of counterfeits even in developed markets. But if you say it's only 0.5%, there will be 10 million patients in danger every year. So it's a really big problem which has to be solved as much as we can. And that's the reason why in July 2011 the Falsified Medicine Directive was implemented. And as a response to this directive, the European stakeholder model was proposed by a set of stakeholders. You will see later on who is involved, as a proposal how to respond to the requirement is laid down in the Falsified Medicine Directive regarding to the verification with a unique identifier. So next slide, please. There are four main areas I would like to shed a little bit more light on, which is about the safety features, the system design, the data, and the governance. how we see it as in our proposed idea. So for the safety features, our understanding of the Falsified Medicine Directive, it requires a tamper-evident closed tag together with a unique identifier, which is a randomized serial number, in order to verify the product at the point of dispense and to verify these against a central database. From the system design, it's so important that it follows that the code which is used for this purpose is following a harmonized global standard, which can be flexible, incorporate also national numbers. Like, for example, in Germany, we have a pharma central number, which is the basis for all the reimbursement system and the health insurance and the government and so on, and we cannot give it up for the sake of another number. So there will be the need to incorporate national health care reimbursement numbers into the system. It must be flexible and can be done via a global standard. And that's very, very important. I think we cannot stress it enough. And therefore it will provide the necessary flexibility which is needed. For the data, the stakeholders agreed on the fact that the data security and data privacy is a key element here. So the manufacturer will never seek to get access to these data, and we agreed on the rule that the data, the transactional data, belong to those who have created these. So, for example, if a pharmacist scans a pack, all the data related to this scan basically belong to the pharmacist. From a governance, and that's also quite important, as this is the main difference to other proposals, is that we think the system is managed the best if it's managed by the stakeholders, which have to use it on a day-to-day basis. And it should be governed by a non-for-profit organization to stick with cost efficiency and effectiveness, which is so important for the healthcare systems, as what we do not have is money. I think we have to be very careful not to overload the patients with cost. So cost is also an issue here. And therefore we propose the governance by the stakeholders. So next slide, please. You may click several times because it's an animated slide. And the Falsified Medicine Directive itself only provides the basis. So it defines that there will be safety features, that there is the requirement for a repository system, then which products are in and out, the obligation for the repackager, safety features, and that the cost has to be borne by the MAH. And the delegated acts we expect end of 2014. They will provide the details of the system, the characteristics, specifications, who and when has the code to be verified, and also it will define what kind of repository system is required. So, and later on, we will have 3 years to implement everything for all these countries which have no pre-existing measures in place. But for the others, like Italy, Belgium, or Greece, it's different. They will have another 6 years. So you can see the timeline is quite long. And I think the challenge is already here today. So we have to do everything to have the system implemented in time and run it successfully. So next slide, please. What about the governance and operational structure of the system, what we call European Medicines Verification System? So next slide, please. It's a stakeholder model, and that's so important to understand. It's at the moment based on 4 stakeholders, of which FPR is only one, representing the pharmaceutical industry in Europe. But there are also the parallel importers involved in Europe, the wholesalers, and the pharmacists. And the system is developed by these stakeholders, as we will have to use it on a day-to-day basis. And it's also based on the regulation of the Medicine Directive that the manufacturing authorization holders will have to pay for the system. And so we want to assure that the system provides what we have to do every day, and it's at the same time very cost effective. Further on, we are happy to onboard further stakeholders, so we are continuously talking with others, like the healthcare professionals in the hospital or the generic medicines industry and so on. So we are open to onboard further stakeholders to join us in our fight against counterfeit in this proposed system. So next slide, please. If we have a look at the governance and operation, the governance we think is best with a kind of a stakeholder board with representatives of all these stakeholders, organizations which support the system. The operation, so the daily management and business of the system, will be done by what we call European Medicines Verification Organizations. That's the operational part. And it's based on a memorandum of understanding with 10 core principles we have agreed upon. The statute is currently under development. And as I already mentioned, we really willing to onboard additional members to broaden the basis of this proposal. This organization, the European Medicines Verification Organization, it is responsible for the policy, the processes, will establish the relationships to the national systems, will develop what is necessary to bring it into daily business, manage the operational business, will provide the reports which are necessary to the stakeholders, and will also communicate as far as necessary. So next slide, please. To get a view on how we believe it's organized, so there is, in general, first of all, what we call an EU hub. It is a gateway where the data are uploaded and then distributed to the national systems. And the governance of this EU hub is busy with the stakeholder board, and as I explained already, the system management is with the European Medicine Verification Organization, and the database and the IT issues are contracted with a corresponding and reliable IT company. This will work together with national systems, as we think the flexibility must be there, and it's better to have such a system of network of systems in the countries, as we found out that the requirements in the countries and the setup how the healthcare system is organized is really different from country to country. It's not the same even in the EU. So it makes sense to have a national system. And that can be either a national separate system connected to the EU hub, or what we call blueprint system, which is also a national system, but the operations and the IT company can be the same as for the EU hub. That will save a lot of cost and development cost especially, but it has to be under the governance of the national stakeholder board. That is I think quite important, so that the national stakeholders have the opportunity and the duty to influence the system as required in this national context. So next slide, please. The next question is how this system, what we call European Medicines Verification System, is designed. So next slide, please. So first of all, it's a pan-European system. As you have already seen, it's a EU hub and a lot of national systems connected to this hub. And it's made to assure the verification of the medicines in subjects at the point of dispense. And what is so important for us is that it's interoperable in between Europe. You may know that we have the parallel imports within Europe. So we have also multi-country packs where one pack is sold in different countries. And so it must be interoperable with all these national systems in all the European countries. It allows an immediate verification at the point of dispense and therefore ensures that patients have access to safe medicine. And it's also the most cost-effective solution according to our investigation and research. To also support this, it will be run on a non-for-profit basis. So the European Medicines Verification Organization will not make any profit. It's just to cover the cost included in this system. It's not about any profit here. Next slide, please. The code we propose to use is based on a global international standard. So we propose to have the 2D metrics code used, and I know there were some presentations already on how this looks like, so no need to explain it in more detail. And you can see on the picture there's an example with prefixes and the corresponding information behind the prefixes. And at the bottom of the slide, you can see an example with the application identifiers of GS1. That's similar what is mandatory in Turkey. And if I'm correct, the next presentation will cover the Turkish system, which is really a story of success, I think. So the code includes the product code, a randomized unique serial number, and the expiry date and batch number. When we discussed at the very beginning what should be included in the code, we recognized to lever all the possibilities in the supply chain and to support easy recall processes and so on, it must be more than what is basically necessary. So we decided the most appropriate approach is to include all these 4 elements into the code. That's the reason why the code is constructed as such. And it also keeps the code in an appropriate size. There could be more included, but then the size of the code will be too big for the pack. So next slide, please. How is the model working? And I think it's quite easy. At the bottom, you can see the normal supply chain from the pharmaceutical manufacturer or power distributor via the wholesaler and distributors to the pharmacist, and finally to the patient. As soon as the manufacturer has produced the product and coded these products and the products are brought to the market, then the manufacturer at this stage has to upload the data to the European hub. And as you can see here, the European hub distributes the data to the national systems, which can be as many as necessary, can be up to 27, 28 in the EU, and distributes the data as required to these national systems. There will no data held on the European hub because they are necessary and needed in the national system. For the distributors and the wholesalers in between, it's only on a randomly based or risk-based approach, the verification of these codes necessary. That's our approach and proposal. And that was also our response to the inquiry made by the European Commission. And once the pharmacist receives the product, he will, at the latest, before dispensing the product, check the data against the data held in the national system. They verify if the data are correct, if they are in the database and have not been used before. Once he gets the green mark, everything is okay, and it's the first time that this serial code was read for dispensing, then he will hand over the product to the patient, and in parallel, the number in the database will be validated and marked that this product, this specific pack, has been dispensed to the patient. In case something is not okay with the number is not in the system, or the number has been already used or so, then the pharmacist will not receive the green mark, but instead a warning and alert, something is not okay, please do not dispense. This can also be used for recalled products, so that the pharmacist is not able to dispense recalled or even expired products, which may happen from time to time, as the stock in a pharmacy can be quite big and not be controlled every day. So next slide, please. We have tested if this system is really working and is a valuable option, and this was done in a Swedish pilot from end of 2009 until beginning of 2010 in Sweden, in the greater Stockholm area, with 25 pharmacies and 180 dispensing points. 25 products were involved, 110,000 packs, and from 14 manufacturers. And it was really a very successful pilot. It exceeded our expectations. So we could prove that the pharmacists can work at their normal working behavior is about. So no problems, no delays. It can be smoothly integrated in the existing workflows. In addition, or as an added value, the pharmacist gets the expiry date and batch number in a machine-readable form. What is not the case today. At the moment, it is manual work in each pharmacy, as it cannot be scanned easily. So that will improve the reliability of product dispense in the pharmacist, and will also improve the quality of drugs provided to patients at the same time. And the German Sequofarm pilot, I will come later on to it, it confirms all these findings in a larger scale now. So it was a very successful pilot, and the project at this time was proven to be a good one and with future, and that was the reason why it was further developed. So next slide, please. You can see here some milestones up to date, and it started earlier than what is indicated here. It started already in 2005-06, when the FPR was talking about the first idea of such a coding system. And then we made the proof of concept with the Sweden pilot, issued together with the other stakeholders a position paper, launched the European stakeholder model officially in June 2012, selected mid of this year the IT company for the European development, and the development already started. And in parallel, the FMD was published. Then from January this year, the directive was transposed in national law. And beginning of this year, the German pilot Sequofarm started. We will see it later on. So later on means now. So next slide, please. To see what can be done in practice from this idea is the best example at the moment is the German Sequofarm system. So next slide, please. First of all, on this slide, as I already mentioned, that are the stakeholders involved in the Sequofarm project. It's about the Pharmacists Association, Manufacturers Association, and wholesalers. So it's similar to what the ESM model proposes, to bring the stakeholders together, to work together, and to find the most appropriate solutions. So next slide, please. The model and the process in Germany is absolutely similar to what we have seen for the European medicine verification system. So on the top you can see the supply chain from the manufacturer via wholesaler to the pharmacy and finally to the patient. And the manufacturer uploads the data in the manufacturer database. And once the pharmacy wants to dispense the product to the patient, checks it against their database, and then the two databases are communicating with the relevant data to find out if everything is okay or not. And then the same happens, the product is invalidated in the manufacturer's database, as well in the pharmacy's database, and then the product is dispensed if everything is okay. So it's absolutely the same. And in between, the wholesalers may do optional checks of the codes as required, based on the risk or based on certain indicators or based on a randomized scheme. That's also possible in this system. Next slide, please. And also the code is similar to what we have already seen. So you may want to visit the Sequofarm website. There's a small video to see how it works in practice. It's a 2D matrix code according to a global standard. In Germany, you have two possibilities at the moment. You can follow the GS1 code, or you can follow the PPN code scheme, which is the pharmacy product number according to the corresponding ISO norm. Both are global standards you can use, and both can be recognized in the system. And the content of the code is exactly the same what was discussed with the European Medicine Verification System. Next slide, please. I think it's important to stress a little bit that the timeline is not as short as some might believe. So to bring such a system in place, it takes a bit of time. So for the German Sequofarm system, we had about 1 year system design phase, then 1 year implementation and test, and finally at the beginning of 2013 or end of 2012, it came into operational phase. First, with we started it as a field test, but then we are now in the situation that we roll out the system for more and more product, and we encourage all the companies participating in this Sequofarm project to keep on coding their products and extend the coding to more and more products as they have developed their own capabilities and implemented the coding capabilities at their packaging lines. And the finally goal is to have a smooth integration in the European required system in the ESM as proposed. So it takes a bit of time. So we should not underestimate the effort to put in, and also the engagement of everybody involved, which is necessary for such kind of system. So next slide, please. The status of the German Sequofarm project is at the moment that 24 manufacturers are participating with more than 100 products. And up to end of October 2013, more than 6 million packs have been serialized. They are brought into the market without any direct distribution. So every wholesaler will receive these coded products and distribute these to the pharmacies. And the one wholesaler with 21 distribution centers optional checks the code in the supply chain. And at the end of the supply chain, 372 pharmacies are currently registered and are scanning the codes, and they are using 7 different software products. You may know that in the pharmacy, it's also already today highly automated, and it's required for the reimbursement process that you have a software in place for your stock keeping procedures, but also for reimbursement and all the other necessary information you may need for pharmacy. And there are a lot of different suppliers providing these type of software. And at the moment, 7 of about 10, 15 which are active in Germany are part of it. And it is fully integrated in the daily business process as we have seen it in Sweden in the pilot. It's exactly the same here. And the challenges we are facing are quite similar to what we have seen in the Swedish pilot. Basically, the coding must follow the requirements. If a company unintentionally makes a mistake with the data structure or the print quality, that is an issue and must be appropriately addressed then. The other issue is that the data have to be in the database when they are needed. So if the process is not yet automated once product is shipped to the market, that at the same time the data are uploaded, it can happen that the product is earlier in the market than the data, and then it cannot be recognized in the database. So this process has to be synchronized. It's very important. Another issue which was also at the very beginning in Sweden, and as we know also in Turkey, is the customization of the scanners used in the pharmacies and how to use these is very important. So training the pharmacists at the end of the supply chain, how to use it and how to fit it into their software package and in their processes is also an issue. They are not so used to scan these kind of codes at the moment, and they must know what is important and what to do. And finally, challenge is the complexity of the processes, that should never be underestimated. There are a lot of interdependencies. There are links between aspects of the system we had not expected beforehand, and so we learned, and that's what I mentioned already before, is that every country has its own specifics, and we have to deal with these. So I think a pan-European single system is really a challenge, as the systems in the countries are so different. And timeline is also an issue. It needs a certain time to implement everything. So next slide, please. Coming back to the European stakeholder model. Here's a view on how it's going to work. So you can see in the left-hand upper corner, pharmaceutical manufacturing communicating with the European hub, and on the right-hand upper corner, the parallel distributor doing the same. The European hub is expected to be fully implemented and available in first quarter of next year. And then it's connected to the different national systems. On the left-hand side, it's a national system, quite a normal one, where the ESM is proposed. Then we have the national system, which is called Blueprint System. You remember that the governance is with the national governance board, but the operational phase in the IT company is the same as for the European hub, so to make it easier and to save costs. And the third option is, and that's on the right-hand side in gray one, is similar to the national system on the left-hand side. It's an implementation, a practical implementation, the Secofarm in Germany, where it is a separate national system with a national stakeholder body governing the system, which will be connected, as expected, in quarter 3 2014 to the European hub. At the moment, the data is uploaded directly to the Secofarm system, but later on it can be done via the European hub. And then we will have another stage of implementation and proof of concept that this European hub is going to work properly. So all the design is made to have the most interoperable and efficient system which is deemed possible. So next slide is about the next steps. So next slide, please. What is on our agenda for 2014 is, first of all, to assure that it is that what we will have in place is as much as effective and efficient as it's needed. So, and consistent with the rights of the authorities. We should never forget that there are some provisions laid down in the Falsified Medicine Directive for the authorities, which is so important that they can make use of the system as well as necessary. Then the system we have developed was made and it was documented according to GRP standards. The term we use here is the computer validation and so on. So it fits appropriately in the pharmaceutical landscape, which is quite important as well. And the system shall be used for pharmacovigilance purposes, product recalls, reimbursement, as well as needed and required by the national authorities. The other topic for the next months to come is to talk about the governance model with the authority. So it is envisaged that we will have a private-public partnership and a co-governance of the stakeholders and the authorities in the corresponding countries. But what is important for us is that there must be a balanced shareholding, and the cost efficiency could not put on stage. So it must be a win-win situation for both, and I think that's possible. And that's our understanding that also the authorities, what I've heard, are really interested to step in here, and that what we have heard from the Commission and meetings with country authorities is that they're encouraging the European stakeholder model to reach out and to intensify the talks with the authorities to bring all these together. And another issue is to promote the system, consult and allow access when the system is in use. For sure, auditing activities are made as required, and also the process, in case an alert occurs, how are the authorities involved, how it is informed about this issue, what kind of data has to be revealed, which are normally under privacy, that has to be finalized also in the next year. So that is my pre-last slide. The next, please. So you can see the major milestones already mentioned in my presentation is that in beginning of 2014, the European Medicine Verification Organization, so the operational part will be in place once the hub is completed in the first quarter. Then to link Secofarm to the hub to prove that this is also working. Then we expect the delegated end of 2014, which means in 2017 it will come into effect and will be mandatory to code and check the product once dispensed. So that's all. I hope it was interesting for you, even though it was not easy for me to provide you a remote presentation without seeing anything in the room, and I could not react on any of your signs or questions. So I'm happy to take any questions which may have arisen now, and thank you very much. So, and that's my last slide. You will see here a web address where you can find a lot of more details and further information if you're interested. Thank you very much.